And we're watching certainly that situation in Georgia where the vote's been coming in very slowly, and it appears a lot of it is in Democratic-friendly Atlanta and the suburbs around there. Let's go to Blaine Alexander, who is on the ground there and has some read, and especially on what we may see in the numbers.
Absolutely, Lester. So first I'll start with those numbers, and then I'll give you another development that we've learned when it comes to absentee ballots. Right now, we are in State Farm Arena. We've been talking a great deal about the absentee ballots here in Fulton County. Well, for the first time, we're actually going to show you those ballots. You can see right here behind me, there are about 3 dozen or so people who are in this room who are working very diligently to open the ballots, scan the ballots, then make sure that those numbers are tabulated. We just got a briefing not too long ago from the person who runs elections here in Fulton County. They've got about 28,000 or so ballots left to process still, and he says they are going to stay here through the night until they get them done. He says they're going to bring in a fresh crew of people, a fresh line of folks to come in, stay till midnight or later if necessary, but that they're not leaving until these are done. Now, that's just the picture here in Fulton County, guys. We'll talk about statewide. Across the state of Georgia, the Secretary of State says they still have about 185,000 ballots still left to process. So he is predicting that it could go later tonight or possibly into tomorrow before we get some sort of a final count. Now, the other thing that we're just getting our eyes on is a lawsuit that was filed from the Georgia GOP, the Georgia Republican Party, on behalf of the Trump campaign. And it was filed against election board officials down in Chatham County. That's a county about 3 hours to the southeast of Atlanta, and it has to do with absentee ballots. This, according to the lawsuit, is being filed to enforce election law. Now, we just got a statement from the Trump campaign as to why they're filing this. It kind of comes down to when ballots are turned in and when they can be counted. Here in the state of Georgia, an absentee ballot has to be either delivered or dropped in a drop-off mail location or drop-off location by the time polls close on Election Day. So that's 7 p.m. yesterday. Well, according to this statement, it says President Trump and his team, there was somebody who, a Republican poll observer in Georgia, witnessed 53 late absentee ballots illegally added to a stack of on-time ballots. So they're suing over that issue. Guys, we should say that we've reached out to Chatham County. We've reached out to the Georgia Republican Party to get any information about this lawsuit and these allegations and have not heard back. Guys.
All right, Blaine, thank you. Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.